Ever been to Mexico and lived to tell the tale? That's the most cliche thought people have about that place. Even though it has good food and good music, it is one of the most dangerous places to visit. With a high crime rate and the drug cartel running loose, we should preferably avoid adding it to our list of tourist spots. There's some stuff you should know about visiting Mexico, and we're going to talk about it in this video. To begin with, we have the Mexican drug cartel. Mexico frequently appears in the news for cartel killings, border clashes, and poisoned drinks. People make a public vow to never set foot in Mexico on social media. Travel advisories from the U.S. Department of State advise against visiting specific cities in Mexico. For more than 10 years, Mexican authorities have fought a brutal war against drug cartels, but their efforts have largely failed. Every year, the violence claims the lives of thousands of Mexicans, especially journalists, students, and politicians. Since the government launched a war on the cartels in 2006, there have been more than 360,000 homicides in the nation. In this battle, the United States and its southern neighbor, Mexico, have worked closely together. Mexico has received billions of dollars from the United States to modernize its security forces, overhaul its judicial system, and finance development initiatives aimed at reducing migration at Mexico's southern border. Plus, Washington has stepped up security and monitoring efforts along the country's border with Mexico in an effort to stop the flow of illegal substances in the United States. The majority of the import and transportation of cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, marijuana, and methamphetamine into the United States is controlled by Mexican drug trafficking organizations, which are also known as transnational criminal organizations. The majority of heroin and methamphetamine are made by Mexican suppliers, while the majority of cocaine is made in Colombia and then shipped to the United States by Mexican criminal organizations. Next up, let's talk about the rising crime rate. Mexico is a country that's rich in a variety of things, including nature, history, music, culture, and cuisine. Sadly, crime is a major concern for the country. Drug cartel warfare has led to a high murder rate and violent crime. Kidnappings are not quite uncommon, although small-time theft is widespread. Many first-time tourists are taken aback by how much of a developing country it is, indicating that perhaps the government is working to keep, at the very least, certain well-known districts and neighborhoods of Mexico open for business. Tourist attractions haven't witnessed quite the same level of increase in crime as other regions of the country have. The fact that Mexico is so far from popular tourist spots means that the majority of visitors are undisturbed by violence. The only threats in touristy areas are robberies and pickpocketing, especially on public transportation, although these can be completely avoided. You can't be sure that you'll be safe while visiting Mexico. Anything can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. The worst scenario for most people is frequently just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, which can be prevented by following good safety practices. Now, you cannot travel there alone. Traveling alone in Mexico can make one feel very vulnerable at times, though nearly everyone's a target in this country. Being single makes you even more appealing to opportunistic criminals. It's a very common idea among people today to try to go backpacking alone. That's understandable since Mexico does have its sights and amazing cuisine. But maybe this isn't such a safe idea, especially if you don't know the language and can't understand what the signs are saying. Since it's a new and unfamiliar country, getting lost is easy. You should always be aware of your surroundings and be on alert in case you notice something unusual. If you're staying in an Airbnb or a hostel, then don't hesitate to check it out if you feel that it's the slightest bit unsafe. You'll also be limited to your exploration during the daytime. Going out alone at night isn't recommended as there are no guarantees for your safety. You should also keep your food and drink with you at all times, or keep an eye once you leave them somewhere. It isn't uncommon for drinks to get spiked or for someone to slip something into your food. Just make sure that this doesn't happen to you. Moving on to the risk of getting kidnapped. The U.S. State Department revised its travel advisory for Americans visiting Mexico, providing additional state-level recommendations and details on the danger of kidnapping. The organization highlighted a rise in crime and kidnapping in some regions of Mexico. In a statement to USA Today, a representative for the State Department said that the organization constantly analyzes all travel advisories to guarantee that Americans receive the most current and accurate information to help make the best choices for their safety and security while traveling abroad. The State Department warned American citizens last week after reports of many vehicle fires, roadblocks, and intense police activity in Tijuana and the neighborhood. We'd suggest that you'd go with someone else and avoid hailing cabs on the street. Instead, utilize a ride-sharing service like Uber or authorized taxis. Going alone in a taxi increases your chances of getting kidnapped. You might look like an easy target to the driver if he has bad intentions. You're more restricted in a car, and hence going with multiple people is always the better and safer option. You should also travel to places which are known to be safe and have big crowds. Traveling to places that are hidden or don't have a big crowd should be avoided at all costs. As tourists, the desire to find hidden gems in foreign countries is high, but we have to keep in mind that this might not be safe. A little bit on the COVID situation in Mexico. Mexico is crowded, with every street and corner filled with people. There's no way you can avoid getting bumped into people or finding yourself in a really congested room. Mexico is open to travelers now, but is it safe enough given the COVID situation? As of September, Mexico reported over 7 million cases of COVID-19 and about 330,000 fatalities. Approximately 209.7 million vaccine doses, or 165 doses per 100 persons have been delivered in Mexico. Mexico's COVID-19 risk was rated as level 3 by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as of September 8th. Given the way it's been affected, you should probably avoid visiting. But if you're still adamant about visiting, then we'd advise you to search for the best places to visit. These should be places with a lot of space, good ventilation, and proper COVID precautions. The last thing we need is to get sick on our vacation. You can easily find which places are safe to travel to. Places that are safe for traveling in Mexico can be found online, both in terms of COVID and safety. Now, it also goes without saying that you should be fully vaccinated. This isn't even something you can have an opinion about. Getting vaccinated is a basic requirement before we even move on to the other stuff. Up next, the crazy mosquitoes. The months of April through November are when mosquitoes are most common in Mexico, and the rainy season sees an increase in their population. In comparison to areas further north, subtropical southern regions such as the states of Chiapas, Tabasco, and Yucatan see a greater abundance of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes flourish in Mexico's lush coastal plains, but you can also find many of them in higher elevations, albeit there are fewer the farther north you go to the central highlands, From late autumn through the winter, mosquito populations significantly decrease, but do not completely disappear. Around the middle to end of the dry season, mosquito populations start to increase. The majority of mosquito bites in Mexico are more of a nuisance than a health danger, because the likelihood of getting sick is quite low. However, mosquito bites are uncomfortable, so it's a good idea to protect yourself against them, whether you're just visiting and particularly if you reside in Mexico or spend a lot of time here. Female mosquitoes can attack any time of day, even though they're typically more aggressive after sunset, particularly in warmer and more humid settings, particularly during peak summer breeding season. Female mosquitoes will always sneak in, hide, and become energetic overnight in their hunt for blood hosts. This is especially true when window and door net screens are used. A bed net is one of the greatest and most efficient ways to reduce sleep interruptions, whether or not you have mosquito nets on your windows. They're really helpful over cots and children's beds. They may be tucked during the day and are inexpensive and simple to install. Using bed nets instead of incense or other synthetic repellents while you sleep is a better option. Finally, the views aren't as great as we think they are. If you think Mexico has amazing beaches and aesthetic spots, then you're in for a big shock. The much-hyped beaches aren't that much of a view and are basically littered with trash and crowded with people. You won't be able to find a peaceful spot on the beach to lay down your mattress and just get tan. You'll have to avoid getting trampled. Okay, maybe that's just an exaggeration. But other than the beaches, there are miles of flatland with no amazing view in sight. So if you're thinking of Instagram pics, then you might want to choose a new travel destination. That's a wrap for this video. After all that we've told you, are you still interested in visiting Mexico? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.